Good morning, class. This is your English teacher, Sir Sanjay. Welcome to yet another YouTube session, online video class lectures, wherein we give you excerpts and explanation, detailed explanation of the lessons whose question, answer, or notes have already been provided. We are meeting in such a manner because the outbreak of one of the worst pandemics has changed or has had severe impact on the way we used to interact, right? So without wasting any further time, let's begin today's lesson. The name of the lesson is The Shepherd's Treasure. Okay, so here is a new word called treasure. What is the meaning of the word treasure? Something valuable kept hidden. Clear? Shepherd, you already know what a shepherd is, right? So let's begin. I'll be reading and explaining this lesson as we move on. And I'll point out important points as well. You got to note them down or keep them in your mind as we progress. Okay, so let's begin. Here we are. So what are we going to read in the beginning? A poor shepherd once lived in Iran. So this story is based in Iran. Clear? A poor shepherd once lived in Iran. Though uneducated, he was very wise and helpful. Clear? He was not very educated. Means he did not have the best degrees and all, but he was very wise and someone who loved helping people. Clear? So what happens subsequently? The king decides to meet him in disguise. Disguise means the king would change his appearance into someone simple and try and meet this person. Okay, what happens as we progress? Let's find out by reading the text. Okay, so give me a moment. Yeah. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. Okay, a shepherd used to live in a village in Iran, is what they are saying. He was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own. He had never been to school or learned to read and write, for there were very few schools in those days. Clear? So let me explain you what is being discussed or written in this first para. It says, in a far, far village in Iran, there lived a shepherd. He was very poor. Clear? He was not rich at all. He was so poor that he did not have his own cottage. Clear? Cottage means small hut sort of house. He did not even have his own cottage. Clear? And he never had the opportunity to go to school to read and write. The reason behind this is while he was young, there were very few schools in his area. Okay, or to be precise, in those days, there were very few schools. There were not many schools, but very few schools in those days. All right, so let's move on. Yeah, though poor and uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. He understood people's sorrows and troubles and helped them face their problems with courage and common sense. Many people, we are here, many people came to him for his advice. Clear? Because he was very wise, many people used to come to him for his advice. Soon he became famous for his wisdom and friendly nature. So as time passed by, what happened? He became very famous for his wisdom, for his ability to think through things very clearly and come up with solution. He became very famous and renowned all over. And he was quite friendly by nature. Okay. He used to, help people in a friendly manner, not rude at all. The king of that country heard about him and thought of meeting him. So what happens? The king kept hearing about this man, and he made up his mind, okay, there is this man who is being heard of a lot, so I think it's wise only on my part to be meeting with this man. But the king would do something before actually deciding to meet him. What will he do? As we read the subsequent paragraphs, we'll understand. Okay, but before this, I think I've already explained. See, Shepherd was very wise. He was poor and uneducated, but his brains were always ticking. Clear. He used to understand common people's sorrows and problems. Okay. And as a matter of fact, he used to help them face their problem with courage and common sense. Common sense is something very important, right? When facing challenge, if you are too scared, you'll not be able to focus on solution. So if you use or apply common sense, what will happen is you may think through and get out of that tacky situation. This is what this man used to do. He was very skilled. Okay, so as time passed by, he kept helping people. His popularity grew and he was quite kind and friendly. And the king happens to hear about him and decides to meet him in person. How and in what manner? Let's find out. Okay, so disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, sort of donkey. Clear? Donkey family. So disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, one day the king came to the cave where the wise shepherd lived. So, what did the king do one day? He changed his appearance completely and he, took the appearance of a shepherd and rode on a mule. After this, he decided to come at the place where the shepherd lived. Okay, so let's continue reading. As soon as the shepherd saw the traveler coming towards the cave, he rose to welcome him. Okay, so what happened? The wise shepherd saw a traveler approaching towards his cave. So he simply rose to welcome him. You know, he took the tired traveler inside the cave, gave him water to drink, and share of his own meager meal. Meager means very simple. Clear? So the shepherd was so kind and generous that he simply rose to welcome the unknown traveler who was approaching his cave. Not only this, he took him inside his cave, gave him water to drink. Okay, he gave him water to drink, and he also offered him a share of his own meal. He was having something. So the shepherd was so kind that he offered his own bite or share of his meal to the traveler. Who was this traveler? This traveler was none other than the king. Okay, who disguised himself as a traveler in order to find whether this shepherd was actually genuine or was he only trying to be good in front of people. Okay, so the king rested for the night in the cave and was greatly impressed by the shepherd's hospitality. Hospitality means treating people and serving them in the best possible manner. Okay, and wise conversation. So the king was mighty impressed with this shepherd who, treated him very well. He offered him water, food, and rest, and whatever was within his capacity. So, as time passed by, the king decided to spend the rest of the night at the cave, and he heard this wise man speak, and he was mighty impressed with his words and all. Not only his word, he was impressed with his hospitality also, the way he treated the king. Okay, so these things mattered, and the king was mighty impressed. So, what will happen as we move on? Let's read the paragraph and understand. Okay, let's continue. The shepherd was able to make out that his visitor was none other than the king. So, as time passes by, we'll find out that the shepherd would be able to understand that his visitor was king. The king made the wise shepherd governor of the small district. So he would be given some sort of promotion and he would be made the governor of a small district. Okay. Other governors, what will happen is when somebody tries to grow, people start becoming jealous and all, right? So similarly in this case, other governors started getting jealous of him. Okay. And they called him dishonest. Okay, so he'll be facing a real tough task now. What will happen? Let's find out. I'll read it. Okay, let me just zoom it a bit. Yeah, so we are here. Though still tired, the king decided to depart the next morning. Okay, the king was very tired, but he thought, it was time for him to go back. He said, "Many thanks for your kindness to a poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to live." So the king was still pretending, as if he was a simple man, and he was asking for permission from the wise shepherd by using words like, "Many thanks for your kindness to this poor traveler. May I leave now?" So here, looking straight into the eyes of the guest, the shepherd replied, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit." So he understood. He said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Your Majesty is courteous word usually used for people in highest position or degree like the king. Clear? He said, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for visiting me. It was wonderful to have you as a guest." Okay. The king was astonished. So we find one new word here, astonished. Okay, so what is the meaning of the word astonished? Astonished means surprised. Okay, keep in mind, I might be asking you. Clear? So the king was astonished. What is the meaning of the word astonished? Surprised, right? The king was astonished as well as pleased. He was surprised as well as happy. "He is indeed very wise," he thought to himself. So the king thought, "This man is really very wise. Okay, I need people like him to work for me." And the thought continued. He thought, maybe I need people like him to work for me. Okay. And the king appointed this humble shepherd the governor of a small district. So what happened is the king made up his mind to use the wisdom of this man, and he gave him the charge of a governor for a small district. Okay, so this happened subsequently as a result of the good treatment the king received and the wisdom possessed by the shepherd. Okay, now what will happen as we progress? Let's find out. We're here now. Although he rose to power and dignity means doing work truthfully. Clear? The shepherd remained as humble as ever. See, he rose through ranks as he continued doing good work. Clear? But some people have this habit of uh, becoming very arrogant and rude if they rise to power. Clear? But this was not the case with shepherd. He was very humble and gentle and kind like he used to be before he had anything. Okay. So people loved and honored him for his wisdom, sympathy, and goodness. People used to love him like anything. Okay, they used to respect him for his wise wisdom and for his kindness, as well as being good to other. Clear? He was kind and just to one and all. So he was very kind and just, means he did not differentiate and was not partial at all. Clear? For him, everybody was equal. All right. His fame and fear, we are here. His fame and fear and wise governor soon spread throughout the country. So his fame, his name and fame as a wise governor and his governance spread throughout the country. Everybody started to recognize him, his wisdom. Clear? Now when one person grows, obviously there'll be people who will be jealous of him, right? So similar thing will happen. Let's read to find out what. Okay. Now the governors of other province grew terribly jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. So the governor of other districts were very badly jealous of the way the shepherd had made his progress. So they started hating him and disliking him and started feeding negativity into the king's head against him. They would speak rubbish and wrong thing shepherd to the about the shepherd to the king. Clear? So what would they say? They said he is very dishonest and keeps for himself part of the money that he collects as tax from people. Why did he always carry with him, they added, an iron chest? Perhaps he carried it in the treasure that he had secretly collected. After all, they said mockingly in a funny way, he was an ordinary shepherd and could behave no better. Okay, now they were feeding all the negativity into the king's head. What did they say? They say he is very dishonest and he steals part of the tax he collects from people and keeps them hidden in his chest is some sort of trunk. He always used to carry one trunk. Clear? So the governor accused him and blamed him. They told him that he is a dishonest guy and he keeps part of his tax collected from people in his trunk, in his chest. Okay, and they also made fun of him, saying, what better can we expect from a shepherd? He is an ordinary person and he is not used to this power and position. Maybe that is the reason why he is misusing everything. Okay, so let's continue reading. We are here. The governor was called to the palace. He was ordered to explain why he always carried an iron chest. The chest contained no gold or silver. Okay. So now an interesting set of paragraph. Let's read. Okay. So at first the king did not pay attention to the reports. But how long could he ignore these governors and their endless stories about the shepherd? One thing was certain, the king discovered. One thing was certain, the king discovered. The new governor did carry an iron chest with him all the time. Clear? So the king did not pay heed to all the things that was being told to him by the other governor. But what happened is they kept telling the king, they kept complaining the king, that this man is dishonest, he carries this and that. So how long could he ignore them? There was a limit, right? And for the king himself, he noticed that this man was carrying a chest all the time with himself. Okay. So now he would do something. What? Let's read and find out. So we are here. So one day the new governor was summoned. Summoned means to call someone into a court or something. Clear? So one day the new governor was summoned. I told you the meaning of this word now. To call someone. Okay. Was summoned to the palace. He came riding to his camel, and to everyone's delight, the famous iron chest was fastened securely behind him on the camel's back. So one day the king ordered him to come, and he did. And to all the other governors' delight, the other governors were very happy. They thought, maybe what they were claiming would all come true today, because the chest they were talking about was fastened on the camel's back. Okay, so everything they claimed up to now seemed to be true. Okay, so now the king was angry. He thundered here means he shouted, roared in his voice. Clear? Why do you always carry that iron chest with you? What does it contain? The governor smiled. He asked the servant to bring the chest. Clear? He asked the servant to bring the chest. How eagerly the people standing around waited for the shepherd to be found out. But how great was their astonishment, and even of the king himself, when the chest was opened, no gold or silver or jewels, but an old blanket was all that came out. Holding it up proudly, the shepherd said, "This is my dear master. This, my dear master, is my only treasure. I always carry it with me." Okay, so very interesting. Clear. Everybody in the court was waiting for him to be found out. They thought now this man will be exposed. All that is stolen will be found out. Okay. When the chest was opened, what was found was an old blanket, and the shepherd claimed and said, "This, my dear master, is my only treasure. This is my hidden secret." Not hidden secret, something very valuable that I've kept secret from others. I always carry this with me. Now, what will the king reply? Let's find out. "But why do you carry such an ordinary blanket with you? Surely you are the governor of a district," the king asks. So the king asks, why, in astonishment, the king asks, "Why would you carry such an ordinary blanket? You are the governor of a district." Okay. To this, the shepherd replies with quiet dignity, "This blanket is my oldest friend. It will still protect me if at any time your majesty should wish to take away my new clothes." Okay, so he said, "This is my oldest friend. It stayed with me in the times when no one was there. You may take away the expensive clothes that you have given me, but this old blanket would stay with me all the time." Okay, this is what he said. "Even if you take away my job and my clothes and all, this blanket would still protect me." How pleased the king was! The king was very happy, and how embarrassed the jealous governors became to hear the wise man's reply. So every other man who were accusing this new governor of doing this and that were now very embarrassed. Okay, they were ashamed of the way they treated this man. Okay. Now the king knew that the shepherd was indeed the humblest. He was very humble, down to earth, true, kind, and the wisest man in the land. So he was very humble and wise. The king was now more assured. So what happened as a reward to what this man did was the king made him the governor of a much bigger district that very day. So as a reward, that very day, the king made him governor of another district. With this, we come to conclusion of today's explanation. It was very simple but yet meaningful lesson. The moral that we learn from this lesson is always be honest and dignified. Good things or great things will follow in your life, and do not worry about what people think and say about you. Focus on doing the work with dignity. Be someone who believes on doing rather than speaking. Okay, so let us conclude today's class. In the next class we'll discuss question answer and all. Thank you everyone for being part of this class. It was wonderful to have you all. Thank you.